Hey YouTubers, I just wanted to kind of drop this real quick video about movie numbers. Honestly, people who are going to the movies now, I'm pretty sure you might have seen this some way, shape, or form. I honestly just got home. I thought this was really interesting. I wanted to make a real quick video about it. So it seems like The Wrap is reporting that the National Association of Theater Owners is reporting their statistics. Every single year they come out with certain statistics to kind of show who exactly is going to the movie theaters and all this other age groups, ethnic groups, and all this other stuff. They reported that in 2016, Asian Americans went to the movie theaters more time than any other minority group or group in the United States by, I guess, a wide margin for the most part. They said that Asian Americans go to the movies on average 6 times a year. That is in comparison to the second place, usually the top group of this entire concept or this entire grouping, for what it's worth, Hispanic Americans, who usually kind of beat it out in terms of who goes to the movies more. They compete mostly with Asian Americans and African Americans. Caucasian Americans are not necessarily the highest group there. I do believe that there are some reasons for that, but I'll get into that in a bit. They beat out Hispanic Americans, who went into, on average, 4.6 times a year, and then African Americans, who went 4.2 times a year. Caucasian Americans went 3.2 times a year. Now, in terms of exactly what this means, they're saying that apparently Caucasians are going a little bit less. Hispanics, for what it's worth, have gone a little bit less, almost a significant margin, almost an entire percent worth, or at least an entire time worth as a whole, less to the movie theaters than they usually did, especially compared to 2015. So that's really interesting. Now, the couple things I wanted to get in through here just really quick. Honestly, I think the biggest issue here is the concept of whitewashing and Oscars so white, Hollywood so white, basically taking cultural concepts, cultural stories from other entities and making movies based around white people, either in those particular roles that are supposed to be played by other minority groups, or maybe making white protagonists, giving them a reason to be somewhere they really shouldn't be and giving them the spotlight of movies. We've seen this a lot over the, basically the entirety of Hollywood's inception and, the last 100 or so years. And we're still seeing it today. Just a couple months ago, we saw, the co-produced China film, The Great Wall with Matt Damon. Obviously, huge failure for the most part. Personally, I think that these numbers are actually kind of a good representation of where we are and where we're going for this. When you have these minority groups basically running the gauntlet and who's going to the movie theater, who's actually spending money, it's going to be a slow process, but I think Hollywood is actually going to take the hint at some point and actually give us more diverse groups of protagonists, stories, stories that relate to the life situations of Asian Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, more so than they do right now with the kind of the overly majority of Caucasian Americans. And when it comes to whitewashing, for the most part, like I said, we're still going to be kind of waiting around in that. One of the biggest issues that we have right now is the viral marketing campaign against Ghost in the Shell, with Major's character being played by Scarlett Johansson instead of someone of Asian descent. Be it, I don't think people wanted Japanese, but I feel like as long as it was Asian, it would probably be a little less controversial. Same thing can be said about Iron Fist. So we're just going to have to wait and see exactly how this pans out. I am very happy about these numbers, especially with Caucasians going less. Not happy about that, honestly. I want more and more people to go to the movie theaters. That's what I'm basically saying. But at the same time, I do think, one of my big points here is I think that kind of represents the fact that Caucasian Americans are probably not going to the movie theaters as much as Asian Americans, African Americans, or Hispanic Americans, because for the most part these days, say what you want about rising ticket prices recently, say what you want about concession prices and all this other stuff, going to the movies is still a relatively cheap form of entertainment. $10 at max, $10, $15 at max, depending on just your personal ticket. You don't need to get concessions or anything for 2 or 3 hours worth of entertainment. Is still a relatively cheap form of entertainment in 2017. So I do think that does play a part in all this. Is cheaper form of entertainment brings out maybe a side that might be a little bit more disadvantaged. And, just taking numbers as they are, not just movie numbers, or just taking just general knowledge of where we're at. Maybe Caucasians aren't going to the movie theaters because they can afford to do something else. I'm not necessarily trying to say one thing or another. It's completely a case-by-case situation, but just taking things as a whole, it probably has something to do with general income for certain groups. So that would be my guess. Honestly, there's nothing here to back that up. There's nothing that I found that would back that up or anything else. Personally, I feel like this is a really good win, and I hope we see more of this. I hope we see these groups going more and more to the theaters. I'm discouraged a little bit by the Hispanic vote, or Hispanic side of the population not necessarily going as much, actually following nearly an entire movie, like I said, I think. Nearly following an entire movie, so we're just going to have to wait and see how that progresses, especially next year. But honestly, this is a really hopeful sign. We may be able to see more films that take maybe Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, or people of Asian descent, people of Hispanic descent, people of African descent, and giving them more spotlight, more stories, and all this other stuff. Not just being side characters or background characters to these big movies, but maybe actually giving them some, idea of where they want to go or what they want to be, and giving role models for certain groups to look up to, and making not everything just white focused or, whitewashed for what it's worth. So these are actually really good news. This is good news. So anyway, guys, if you did like this video, if you thought informative, you like box office stuff, please make sure to rate, comment, subscribe, share this out to your friends who might be interested, and just kind of share your thoughts in the comment section below, because I do want to read them. I want to know your thoughts about this in particular. But anyway, guys, I'm going to catch y'all later. Please make sure to have a good day. Bye.